Okay, here is my senior project. So far, I have for the dialogue, I have not implemented a way to skip through it. So in the video, you'll probably just have to kind of skip through, and I won't talk during those times just because it takes a little bit. But I'm gonna go through the playthrough as said before, and then I'll go over different parts. Also, I'd noticed as I was going through this that some of the UI is a little bit messed up. I guess because when I'm testing, um, it doesn't line up like it would if you're doing full screen like I am now. So you'll see some weird stuff there, and I'll fix that later. But here we have the main menu, new game, select scene, and exit. So of course every main menu, there's the different parts that you'd go to. And then this would be an example where you just skip ahead in the video just because this might take a few seconds, and I'm not going to talk during these times either. Okay, here's the first scene. As suggested in my write-up for the milestone 2, what I would like to do in between that dialogue and then this scene is make a little cut screen or cut scene where the astronaut's in the ship and somehow it gets blasted down and it crash lands or whatever. But yeah, that's what I have. As you can see, I'm walking, and then if I hold the shift button down, I'll be running. So I'm just gonna come over here, and some dialogue will pop up. And again, I'm not gonna talk during this. Okay, so now a gun will appear, and then once the dialogue is over, I can grab it, and the next scene will load. Okay, so this is an example of the UI being weird when it's in full screen. For some reason, the health bar is basically in the middle of the screen when I wanted it in the top left. Um, and also, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out. So that's supposed to be the enemy. I can't figure out for some reason why it's not standing straight up. When I'm testing it in the test window, it stands straight up and it does everything it's supposed to. But then when I actually go to run it in the game window, it it rotates 90 degrees. And I've looked for different solutions and I just can't seem to figure out what the issue is. So, but this scene, you're supposed to collect these as your parts, and then in the bottom left, obviously there's 4 parts you need to collect, and each time I collect one, it'll decrease. And if I get close enough to I'll show. Yeah, if I get close enough to the enemy, I'll lose health, and he'll also chase after me. And then since I died, of course you have the UI saying you want to start, restart, or go to the main menu. I can just click restart to restart the game. So the only way to get away from the enemies is to shift. And once you're out of range, there's another. Oh, I'm dead. So you'll run. Yeah, I just need to decrease the range that they can hit you. So once you collect all of them, you will go to the next scene. Oh, okay. So the game is taking it that whenever I collide with the parts object, that um, it's taking away health. So I forgot to change that. So just to get to the next scene, I'll just go to main menu, deliver the parts. So here, what I wanted, same thing with the health bar. I have lasers coming down, the aliens trying to shoot you, and you just have to run there and hopefully not get hit. The lasers are randomly generated from a number and then is set to be in the bounds of the camera. And once I get to the end, it'll do, of course, thanks for playing, and then you'll go to the main menu. I want to make it a little bit harder with the lasers because it seems like they're not really hitting, even when I was testing it and making it spawn more. But that's basically the playthrough there. So I'll go through the different parts. Here's the main menu. Let's go to the canvas. You have all your buttons. So I'm on the back side of it. You have all your buttons that you'll see in the dialogue whenever you click new game. That's pretty basic, but the code for it. So I have the buttons manager right here, and this is basically just all the different buttons in the game. You can I make them have the button manager script in the scene, and then you can decide what function the button will use when it is clicked on. But that's that, and then the next scene will be the test scene. You have the moon, of course, the ship, all that. The biggest part for this is the pillar here, which will detect when the player gets close using this sphere around it, and then you decide the dialogue, etc. Now the dialogue, I use it 3 different times separately, and they're a little bit different each time, so they're not exactly the same. So for example, that cavern with the pillar and the light in the middle of the room. So when this ends, pretty much nothing happens. But then when you get to the pick up the weapon, it will, yeah, it'll wait for you, and then it'll change the UI there. But so for the dialogue, since it's such a big thing, there's a lot going on with it, and it's essentially just making a queue of all the sentences that you created in the other window here, and then it's using a hold on. Some of them I put comments through excessively, and others I didn't. So of course, when you start the dialogue, you're going to clear any of the sentences in the queue right away, just in case there's anything left over. And then for all the sentences in the dialogue that you pass through, you're going to put it onto the new queue here, and then you're going to go to display the next sentence. And for the cavern, I set it to once there's only 2 sentences left in the sentences queue, then the gun will appear in the scene. And then if there's no more sentences in the queue, then we're going to end it, and that makes sure all the all the UI is gone. Here you have the current sentence, and we're going to go through a function that makes it appear as though it's like an animation going through, so essentially just you putting each letter into um, the UI one by one. And so I was thinking for the skipping part that I would just say um, if the player clicks the button, then just decrease the time here in between each letter, and then decrease the time here in between each sentence. But that's the gist of all the dialogue stuff there. And of course, with the astronaut, with the main character, you're gonna have player movement. The essentials obviously use your the arrow key or the WASD. Although the way I decided to go about this was just forward and backwards, not side to side, because I liked how smooth this method was in terms of when you're moving forward or backwards, and this method does not have a side to side feature, at least one that had worked with everything else going on. Because if the other method was just add so many units to X, Y, or Z um, coordinates, and then you'll obviously change your position. And then here's where you would say if the player is holding down shift, then they'll increase the speed. And here's the animation as well. If the character is not moving, then stop. Here is for the scene of when you're collecting the different items. Once the number of items on the UI is 0, then it'll just change the scene. And then here is also where I will have to change the item, just so it doesn't decrease the character's health. That's it here. Crystal Cavern, we went through that pretty much. And here, similar thing. You just have, I don't know why it doesn't go forward faster sometimes. Similar thing as the first scene, you have a character and then the enemy script. This was a little bit difficult because there was a lot going on. Okay, so your field of view is what I can show you here. So the field of view is the yellow one, and then when it damages you is actually the red one. So if you get into the yellow at all, then it'll start chasing you down, and then once you get to the red, you'll get hurt. But I like being able to visualize that part. And here's just the code for that. If the distance of the player, so you get the distance from the player and then the alien. If the distance is within the field of view, and then they'll start moving. Here, it's also hard to see in the scene. If you are in the field of view, there will be a little exclamation point that pops up and will stay there until you are out. And that's what this part does, the is alert. So it doesn't just continually spawn exclamation points on top of each other. And then there's a program for that so that it doesn't just stay in one spot, it follows the enemy. And then here's how you drew the field of view and the attack range. But that's pretty much it for the enemy. Nothing else here. And the run to the ship. So since I couldn't get the spawning of the terrain by itself, I just laid a big flat terrain and just mirrored it so that it was flat with itself. But the biggest one here is the laser manager, and that just decides when and where the laser should spawn. So every 0. For the whole scene, every 0.75 seconds, a laser will spawn in the world. I'll split that up so you can see it a little bit better. And then it'll create the laser, and the laser will fall. But that's it for the big parts. Of course, all the models I, like I said, made myself. Character and the animations. I think that's it. And what I'd also like to do is kind of clean this up because there's one or two programs I don't use, and one or two that can probably just go into other files and it won't mess anything up. But that's it. And like I said, where I'd like to go is fix up that bug with hitting the items will hurt you, and then also the cutscene and the dialogue, and that's, I guess, the biggest three. And two of them aren't going to be that hard. One of them will just take some time. So, thank you. Have a good day.